Record. Good morning, or I should say good evening, Fatima, for you. It's good morning here in Los Angeles, but welcome. Welcome to the Healthy, Peaceful podcast. For viewers and listeners, I'm Noreen, and I'm joined here today by Fatima Al Mansoori. And I'm just going to take a moment and read Fatima's bio for you. And Fatima's recording today with us from Abu Dhabi in the Middle East, formerly from Bahrain, but Abu Dhabi is her new home. And so just bear with me a moment while I do a little bit of reading. Fatima is an internationally accredited institutional yoga therapist and wellness and lifestyle coach from Bahrain. She is a humanitarian social worker and an adjunct professor at the Human Consciousness and Yogic Sciences Department in Mangalore University in India. Her journey started after she was diagnosed with chronic fatigue and narcolepsy caused by a disorder known as fibromyalgia. When doctors told her there was no cure and the prescribed medications failed, Fatima sought the path of self-healing, adopting a yogic lifestyle, which completely cured her condition over time. Later, when people asked her for advice, she realized her mission in life. She set out to learn more and to make herself available to serve people and dedicate her life to helping others increase their self-awareness. She is a well-known influencer in Bahrain. She developed a unique treatment protocol and was able to guide hundreds of patients to adopt a healthy lifestyle, resulting in finding relief from chronic conditions and improving quality of life since she began her journey in 2011. Leading to her appointment at the BDF Hospital, Bahrain Defense Force Royal Medical Services in 2014. She is also an international speaker and a columnist with several well-known newspapers and magazines. She appeared in many radio and TV shows. She received more than 50 awards and certificates of appreciation from global organizations, ministries, universities, and institutes for her humanitarian social activities, including PAAN Best Social Worker Award by Honorable Justice Korean Joseph, Judge Supreme Court of India, who came all the way to Bahrain for the award ceremony in appreciation of her determined and dedicated courageous relief activities during the Kerala flood in August 2018, an honorary champion for peace membership from the World Connection of Champions of Peace. Her outstanding professional experience and contribution in the field led to her appointment as an adjunct professor at the Department of Human Consciousness and Yogic Science at Mangalore University in 2017. Her efforts in promoting well-being got recognized by the UN GCC Information Center, as her role as an activist to promote well-being certainly supports the Global Sustainable Development Goal number 3, good health and well-being. Woo, that was a mouthful. Welcome, Fatima, welcome. Yeah, and I'll start off just by saying that you and I met about 4 years ago while we were both at the Kushi Institute, the Center for Macrobiotics, it's bigger than that, the Center for Personal and Planetary Health. And I know you were there as a student and also as a presenter and yoga therapist and yoga teacher. But a lot has happened since 2016. So where do you want to start?
Where do you want me to start? First, I would like to thank you for having me. It's a pleasure speaking from a different part of the world and being connected.
Absolutely.
And it's good to speak again. It's been a long time since we've been the KI Institute.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I know that your most current project, well, you have a more recent project than that, but maybe we can start with your organization, which is Sustainable Humanitarian Development. And why don't you tell me a little bit and tell our viewers and listeners about, how that evolved, how it came into being, what was the catalyst for that, and where you see it now and where it's going. So Well, let's start with that. How did that come into being? How did that birth?
It started. I thought I wanted to establish something to help me continue doing what I was doing already, which is the humanitarian missions and supporting different groups of people, giving out different programs. So this whole establishment is for education, training, and consultancy. So when it comes to humanitarian development and humanitarian work, most people focus on financial support and sending out money to different areas, to refugees, and to support different like countries during crisis, or different communities, let's say, rather than countries, communities during crisis. Okay, but the idea of the establishment came because I thought there was something else that is needed even more than the financial support, because for us as human beings, it is very much needed to be there for each other and to support and to try to give some at least psychosocial, integrated psychosocial support. And this is what I do as a yoga therapist. So it was good to go to the refugees and be there for them, to try to support them. We didn't know how they were going to react, but throughout my experiences, I received excellent feedback from those people, the refugees, how they were really the feedback and how they reacted to the sessions that they were taking, like very simple sessions of psychosocial support, stress management, and even for the pregnant women. So the more I got into this, the more I realized that there is a huge need for this, and there were many requests also from international organizations that they needed this kind of services because it wasn't available very much, and it was something new that not many people were doing. So then I decided to kind of put it on an organizational level, where I have a team of experts from all over the world that can help me deliver, or we can all work together to deliver these services on a voluntary basis. And the main idea of the establishment is to basically try to put out as much as we can to create a more sustainable world, and let's say help and humanitarian development. So it's very much focusing on education, training, and consultancy. So these services, we even offer them to for employees and for let's say more of a corporate services, and these will be charged, and then that money will goes into the accounts to help me and the team or anyone else to get into these field trips and missions, and to go and support the refugees and other communities all over the world.
Wonderful. Now, I think you indicated it started with the Kerala flood. Is that in 2018? Would that be correct?
I think it kind of created, like, it went viral when I went to the Kerala flood, but before that, I with the refugees, and I started with the refugees and the Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. That was yeah. So then I noticed how much they needed the services, and how much they appreciated it, and I got in touch with some officials from the UN who were very interested in the services, and they help facilitate to a bigger areas in the camps, because it's so huge. So they help facilitating and tie up with the different also other organizations, and then it started to grow and grow, and then I thought maybe it's better to establish something so that it can help me also sustain, so that it can help me work better. And honestly, I can say I've been very much known to work as an individual. I'm not very much used to work as a team, to be honest, but it's always good to work with a team. I've always wanted to work with a team. I've always craved the work, but it never, but I just find myself in the middle of a situation and I go for it, and there's no time to plan or to have a team or to have, and in order to have a team you need some planning, and it has to be very well planned and organized. But since I've been doing things just out of, like, you can say a little bit impulsive and a little bit, but out of just pure, let's say, just like if something happens right now and I feel that I feel connected to the cause or the case or whatever is going on, I just look up some information and I Google my way there,
Sure.
And
I think what you're indicating is you've taken up to this point a very intuitive approach, which has served you well. And although this may have started in that way, your planning and really reaching out to collaborators will strengthen your efforts and sustain the organization and the mission, and bring in talents from a number of different fields, cultures, and so it's always bigger than the eye, and you can really expand your reach. There's no doubt. So kudos to you for that.
With how many people wanted to join and support this organization or establishment. The team that I've built is amazing. Like
That is
experts from around.
That's a real gift. There's no doubt. And that says a lot to your commitment and dedication as well. And but I know when you and I spoke earlier, you talked about before getting involved in this kind of work, you weren't going into refugee camps or going into natural disaster areas, and you shared with me that personally this was something that you felt compelled to do. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about that? That your personal situation.
There was actually a turning point. There's always a turning point. Remember, even when I got into this yoga and natural healing, when I had this fibromyalgia, and then the humanitarian work, there was a specific turning point as well. This was when my mother passed away. May her soul rest in peace. Well, at that time, it was very challenging times, and I felt the need to just be away, but be somewhere where I can help other people, reach out to other people, especially when you're going through difficult times, challenging times. And we all go through times when we're really depressed, we lose someone dear, and we lose interest in almost everything. And that was the time for me to just storm off and do some humanitarian work. I thought it was going to help me, and it did, more than I have imagined. Part of it is seeing other people's suffering, and then feeling, practicing gratitude while you're there. You see other people and how they're suffering and how they, and then you realize that your pain is, you should be grateful for situations that you're in, because other people are even going through deeper pain and more pain, and so it helps you to put yourself in perspective that there's a lot more suffering in the world. And when you see that, you kind of feel that you need to be stronger so that you can support those people, rather than just feel weak and sad and
that's I mean, it's easy to succumb to despair. We all face challenges and difficulties in our lives, but to actually and gratitude is it's not an intellectual exercise, it's more of a feeling, and it's amazing that you were able to re-invoke that feeling by witnessing and participating in the suffering of others and trying to alleviate some of their suffering. So I really find that to be really amazing. and we all have our own medicine for difficult situations, but I love the way that you channeled it in a very positive way to reaching out to others, But, when you started this journey, well, the journey started much before that time, but when you started this journey, I believe back in 2011, and you started to search for a cure for your own, in terms of going into yoga therapy and healing your own medical condition at the time. Do you want to say a little bit about how that transpired or how that came to you?
Yeah, the fibromyalgia, that's a whole different story also. That a lot of people still contact me to find a cure for fibromyalgia because they do, like most people who suffer fibromyalgia, they get stuck in this disease. There's no cure for it, and it's really difficult to be there because nobody can feel your pain or see your pain. It's an invisible disease. It's not like something people will not, most of the time they'll think that you're like just they will try to give you some solutions that are unrealistic, like just go out, just eat this or eat that, or do this or do that, But fibromyalgia is a really difficult disease that keeps you in a dark corner. You don't know what to do, and there's no cure for it, and nobody feels your pain basically. And some people may even think that, oh, you're faking it. Some people may think that it's just in your mind, and all of these kind of things, especially about it being a controversial disease. But recently they have discovered that a proper way to diagnose it, and some kind of medications also to help the patients. But fibromyalgia on its own is a really challenging disease, so that when most people who get it, they fall into depression due to the lack of resources when it comes to how to support yourself or how to get yourself out of this disease. When you get a chronic condition and people and doctors tell you there's no cure for it, of course you're going to feel depressed,
Of course,
especially
yeah.
if it prevents you from going to work, and you feel sleepy all the time, you feel so tired, you have widespread pain. Anyway, so I had this condition, and I was trying to find a cure for almost 4 years, and then I decided to just live with it. And that was the moment, that was the turning point when I decided to just live with it. That kind of surrender, that
Yeah,
it's not giving up, it's more of a like
acceptance.
You surrender to it, and you just, the acceptance was the key point. So when you surrender to God, we say,
Yes.
just accept what's going on with you, rather than struggle. And because we live in a society where we're constantly telling us to never give up and always fight and but it doesn't work with everything, especially with such disease like fibromyalgia.
Yeah, and no, that's true. Being aggressive with any situation is usually counterproductive. That's why when I hear things about fighting cancer, it's already I think putting the patient in a position where healing, which is really self-healing, it's all healing starts with self-healing. It's really more challenging if you're fighting. So I know that you turn to yoga and the yogic practices, and particularly yoga therapy, to help you with your own symptoms. And eventually that you came to that as your profession and what you've been doing professionally over the last 10 years has evolved and expanded much wider than that. But initially it started with yoga and yoga therapy. Do you want to speak to that a little bit? How you decided to transition from things that were instrumental in your own healing to actually making this a career path?
So I didn't even think about that, to be honest. I remember my dad telling me when I decided to go to India to learn yoga, my dad was telling me, well, to begin with, nobody believed that I can do it, because when you suffer from fibromyalgia and you're always feeling sleepy and tired and you don't have the energy, So everybody was like, what, you're going to India? Do you think you can do it? Like are you out of your mind? And I was like,
Right,
yeah,
right.
no, I need to do this. So then when I insisted and I was like totally ready for it, and everybody saw that I was serious about it, my dad, I remember him saying, oh, then you can come back and do your own yoga studio. And I was like, what? No, I'm not even thinking about it,
Right,
I used to
right.
be a graphic designer,
Okay.
my own office, and I was still paying rents and believing that one day I would get back to it. And I was so attached to it. I was so attached to it that I didn't want to. I didn't even think about changing my field, or doing yoga as a career,
Sure.
or whatever. But yeah. So when my father said that, I was like, huh? I didn't even click with me. So so I went there. It was more for self-healing. It was more like for me, but I didn't want to go as a like I didn't want to take sessions and come back. I wanted to learn. I wanted to actually study rather than just take sessions and come back, because I understood that there is no cure for this fibromyalgia. But what I wanted is just to go and learn yoga so that I can feel better. And my idea was that I want to actually learn how to do it rather than just go to a session and then feel better and then come back. So I wanted to learn it for continuity so that I can continue doing it.
Yeah, you
uh,
actually wanted to train in it you wanted to really deepen your understanding and education. So,
right, not just
yeah.
go for sessions, but rather go and study it.
Yes, yeah.
So and I started off with an intensive 2 weeks course, and
Mhm.
then I ended up extending and extending and extending and extending,
Mhm.
because it was the information that I was learning was like light bulbs.
Right.
Light.
Right.
It was so, like the information was amazing. I wanted to learn more. I had this appetite, even though I was so tired and I had the fibromyalgia. I was like, I can't focus, and I'm forgetful, and I can't get up. But and the
Where did
doctor, the Ayurvedic doctor,
where did you study at the time?
it was in Mangalore, and the
Okay.
Ayurvedic doctor that was teaching me, she noticed how tired I am and all, and she put me on Ayurvedic medication, which has helped a little bit. But in order to recover from fibromyalgia, you need to have you need to commit to something like a lifestyle long term, for a very long time. You
Yeah.
don't just take medications for a month or two and then it's gone. No, fibromyalgia needs a lot of work so that it can keep you alone, or leave you
Yeah,
alone, we can say.
it's a slow process, and Ayurvedic medicine,
So
unlike a slow process, and Ayurvedic medicine, unlike Western medicine, um, it's getting to the cause, but it typically does take longer. So,
mhm.
so you
Yeah, and
decided to extend your stay?
exactly. So I extended my stay. I've learned many things, and then I've used the information that I've learned to help myself. So I created this self-healing protocol for myself, which includes basically from everything I've learned, which includes yoga, like meditation and breathing techniques, and some stretches, and then a healthy diet, and then completely also using some Ayurvedic medications and eating good, the mental, the mindset and the meditation, everything all together, like a holistic approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I continued to practice when I got back from India. I continued to practice for about, within 3 months, I started to notice results. It needs a lot of patience. But I didn't give up because I was feeling better, but not noticing any results. But when I'm practicing, I feel better. When I'm doing my breathing, sometimes the pranayamas, sometimes I feel like, oh, this is stupid. What are you doing? And then I remind myself to continue doing it, because you feel good when you do it. So carry on. I just talk to myself and like reaffirmations that, okay, carry on, keep doing it, don't give up. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Was there anywhere when you returned home? How long did you, was this Mangalore University where you were?
That was an institute of Ayurvedic Research Institute.
Oh,
It was, and then I went back to Mangalore University, because when I got back in Bahrain and people started to like, within 3 months I started to feel results. When in 6 months I started to
sure.
feel better, and within 8 months I was like almost back to normal. And the more
Okay.
I kept practicing and more I carried on, the more I started to feel even better than before. My energy levels, my character, everything is shifted and became a little better. So within eight
Okay.
months, yeah. And then when people started hearing through social media, I've already had my network, and people started to hear about it, and so I started to share like tiny bits and pieces about my experience and what I've learned and how I
Mm-hmm.
feel, everything. And then started to get calls out of nowhere from people who are suffering, and one would be saying, "Oh, my sister, my mother, please help us," and And I started to receive calls also from health centers, physiotherapy centers, natural healing centers, and hospitals. They all wanted me to come and share my experience.
Okay.
And um, and then also I started to receive calls from newspapers, magazines, and TV shows,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
everything. They all wanted to know the secret. How can we recover from fibromyalgia? Okay.
Oh, wow, wow. So this was actually happening quite organically. This wasn't it wasn't like I'm going to set out and do this. This was, you were being asked to do this and
Actually, I was resisting. It was the
okay.
opposite. Yeah,
All
I was
right.
resisting because I was so attached to doing what I was doing before as a graphic designer, and I had my baby, which is my office, and I didn't want to give it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, yeah, you were enjoying your life and probably now that your energy level had returned, you wanted to resume your normal life.
Exactly.
But your
Yeah.
your
I
your
worked so
normal
hard to establish it. I worked so
sure.
hard since yeah, so it wasn't easy to give it up, so there was a little bit of resistance. I wanted to go back to doing what I'm doing, and then I had like a really honest um conversation with myself about whether I will, like, I had to decide whether I will look forward or continue doing what I'm doing. And then I made
Mm,
a very tough decision. Like, it was I can say it was one of the hardest decisions that I've made in my life, is to look forward and to completely forget about everything. It's like reinventing yourself, basically.
sure,
It was,
sure.
yeah.
So you created the space for something new, and you let go of your attachment, and those are very yogic, and perhaps you just entering the world of yoga. Those are very
Yeah, to be honest,
yogic concepts.
yeah, I didn't even create that space. It was just like, God wanted, it was just happening and receiving
Yeah,
all these calls, and it was overwhelming. And I was like, I don't even have the qualifications to come to your hospital and teach people. It's just I did just simple short courses for my own self-healing, and they were like, we want your experience, we don't want a certificate. And the yoga is an
right.
invasive practice that you don't, like, it's not required a specific qualifications. As long as you have the certificate, then you can do it. But
Mm-hmm.
again, when I started seeing people, and then I wanted to help more, so I had to go back to India. This is when I went to Mangalore University to
Okay.
study more, so that I can learn, so I can help more people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then I continued studying. Then I went to Bangalore again. No, not again. That was first. Mangalore was the first one, and then Mangalore University, and then Bangalore. Bangalore was when it was another university also, where they have research lab, and they have like a hospital where I did my training there as well. So it was a lot of training and courses, training and workshops, so all vocational training. There is now a full academic training, I mean, or qualifications for yoga, but that is like a whole 4 or 5 years study, for
Right.
someone, which I would totally recommend for someone who wants to like be serious and get into this field. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was for my self healing, and I did these courses, and it helped me so much. And then all the hospitals were interested to have me come and have a like a talk or workshop, and some of them even offered me clinic so that I can see patients, and then support them like an integrated approach. They would send the patients who are suffering from chronic conditions, stress related diseases, and
Mm-hmm.
we had great results. So
Okay.
uh, doctors were thrilled with the results they see with the patients from different conditions, from skin conditions to IBS to, like, you name it. And they will
Mm-hmm.
just, whenever they feel like the patient is stuck because of a kind of a mindset thing or a lifestyle thing or a stress related issue, they would just send them across, and I'll deal with them. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Yeah,
This is
yeah.
how it
And
happened. It was never planned, and it just
right. It evolved. It took on a life of its own, in other words. And I you were also interested in diet as well. And I mean, we're really talking diet and lifestyle and a general yogic approach, including meditation and breathing and postures, of course. Um, so tell me about your studies regarding diet and food as health, and then we can segue into, what's currently happening in the Middle East and how you're integral in some of the change that's
Mhm.
happening there. So,
Right. Yeah, diet is one of the most important things that you can do to begin your healing journey, basically. Um, and a lot of people prefer to suffer than to change, especially when it comes to diet. Honestly, I see a lot of
I,
people who, yeah,
I
they
think
wouldn't want to go.
I think that's I think that was I think the big word for that is attachment. The word that you mentioned earlier, attachment. Yeah, diet is,
Yeah.
people are very entrenched and attached. There's no doubt.
The thing is, it's so, you cannot teach someone not to be attached to something. It comes from within. They need to decide for themselves that enough, I need to live a better life, I need to become a better person, I
Mm,
need to raise my consciousness. You cannot, no matter what you try, you cannot make people, especially with diet, they have to want to,
sure, sure. Absolutely, absolutely. I totally concur on that point, you know.
Right. Yeah. So
Um,
part of my study when I first started was Ayurvedic diet.
mhm,
So I started with Ayurvedic diet, nutrition and diet. So the Ayurvedic nutrition and diet is, the course was very helpful. It helped me understand so much about the Ayurvedic body types, the doshas, and
mhm,
then
mhm.
and when you understand your body, you know which foods to favor and which foods to avoid. That was very helpful for me. And I did also herbology, like more of like understanding basic herbs and how to use them, and how to use them to basically boost immunity and to help you with the stress and things like that. It's very
Mhm.
exciting and very it was very interesting, like a learning curve,
Oh, sure.
and then especially with the microbiotic, with the
Mm,
microbiotic I've had, um, again, I was resisting very much. I got the opportunity because I was teaching in Saudi Arabia, which is a neighbor country.
mhm.
So during that workshop, I've met a really nice woman who was into microbiotics, and she told me, when I saw you right there teaching us, I was like, she's the one who's gonna come with me to the US.
Okay. Just for our viewers and listeners, for a moment, just excuse me for a moment, but Ayurveda is a healing system. Ayurveda means long life, and it's a healing system from India, based on ancient wisdom, but also incorporates diet as an integral part of self healing and optimum
The
health,
science,
the science of
yes.
healing. And macrobiotics actually is essentially the same thing. It means large life, but it originates culturally from Japan. Both have migrated to the US and other countries as well around the world. Um, and they both, to some extent, reflect culturally their origins in terms of the foods that they really
Right.
think are the best or optimum for health. So that while they're very similarly rooted, the actual food recommendations are strikingly different. And I think what's interesting about your background, Fatima, and mine is I spent a year studying Ayurveda at the Ayurvedic Institute in New Mexico with Dr. Vasant Lad over a 3-year period. And I spent over a year at Kushi Institute studying macrobiotics. So I actually just realized that as we were talking, that we both studied Ayurveda.
So you
and
started out with Ayurveda.
I started with Ayurveda, but I was very curious about macrobiotics. And I want, it sounds like you were talked into macrobiotics by, it wasn't something.
Yeah, I just wanted to focus because I was doing really well and it was working for me and for the patients and for
you weren't necessarily interested in adding another tool to your toolbox, in other words.
Yeah, I felt like, if you're doing good and it's helping people and you need to focus. I don't believe in like knowing everything and learning everything. I like to be focused and to be specialized in something.
Yeah.
So I resisted very much, and then my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and that was the moment when I was like, you know what, let's do it.
Okay.
I took my path and went to the Kushi Institute.
Yeah, and so when you were at the Kushi Institute, I believe in 2016, is that right? 2016?
I started in 2014.
Oh, you did? Okay. Okay.
And then I came back in 2016 for the summer conference as a speaker. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, what did you learn there? What stands out to you? How did that enhance your
it did in many ways.
Experience with clients and what you were able to bring to your clients?
First, the facial diagnosis was something. It was on spot, It's like we really learn how to do it, and you have that ability and intuition, and you have, you can easily read the signs, the facial diagnosis, and it's like almost always accurate, so it's very helpful.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a preventive, like we can take preventive measures because you can basically see what's going on with somebody.
Sure.
Like
You
face or their hands,
well, you can be proactive. And I think the thing with facial diagnosis is, and the hands, it's the power of observation and actually noticing,
That worked a lot. And I will honestly tell you, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, especially with people around you, with people you love and people especially because it's really difficult to talk people into change, especially when it comes to attachment with diet and with specific habits.
Sure.
So it's a blessing and a curse because you can see that they're going down the hill, but you can't stop them because they don't want to lose the attachment to that specific habit that is causing them that specific problem, which they can't see, and they probably won't believe when you tell them,
they're not ready to hear it. They're not ready to hear it.
And it's, to be honest, it has happened to me several times, and it's kind of ouch, where you see someone you love and you just basically watch them going downhill and you can't do anything to help.
You
just tell them, you try to tell them nicely, but it doesn't come out nicely because there's no nice way to say it.
No, there really isn't any nice way to say it. And maybe the solution to that is just be a loving presence.
My husband told me something very interesting the other day when we were talking about a similar subject. He said, because he's an ex-pilot, so he's a military pilot. So you know what he said? He said, with all the information you have, you remind me of engineers. Engineers cannot fly because they know way too much going on in the
Well, that's interesting. I would agree but disagree. Sometimes having worked in my past life with clients who are engineers, I know exactly what you're talking about. On the other hand, I think as you've moved from your working as a yoga therapist and a healer and the healing, and then going into really expanding your reach to, the sustainability goals and really working as an influencer. I think you can do both. I've seen you can see the bigger picture as well, and you're not lost in the details, in other words.
Right. Yeah.
So I know that recently you're doing some work with meditation and mindfulness. You told me about, prior to COVID-19, you were working in the schools. And
Right.
do you want to tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, the mindfulness at schools project, that was I worked on that so hard. I wanted to achieve that, and then when we achievement when we got the achievement unlocked, we finally made it, and we're in the schools. COVID-19, and then
Yes.
yeah. So the mindfulness at schools is a project where we've worked on so hard with experts from Ireland and
I have a question about that. How did you connect with someone in Ireland? I'm just curious as to that.
I was attending a workshop for Dr. Gabor Mate, if you heard
Oh
about
yeah,
him.
he's wonderful. His work on trauma, and addiction. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's fascinating.
I did
Did
one
you
workshop.
did you go to Canada? Did you go to Canada for that workshop?
It was in Ireland. It was in one
Okay,
of the,
I see. Okay,
yeah. So I
right.
attended the workshop, and then
Yeah.
I I looked for places to volunteer while I'm there, and then I saw like a call for speakers for autism to help the parents. And then I submitted. I said, okay, I can do some kind of stress management for the parents and how they can uh, manage. Yeah, and then I've met this Irish mindfulness expert. Yeah,
Okay.
he is the founder of Mindfulness Schools Ireland,
What is his
and
name, or do you remember his name, or?
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
you will, yeah, you will even find a lot of information. Let me just find.
I know he's on your website, but I didn't note his name.
Okay. So I had several people in my team, including him. His name is James White.
Okay. Thank
James
you.
White. And
Thank you
then
for looking that
I
up.
have people from Bahrain who are part of the medical research team. So
Okay.
we have James, and we have professors. Like I can name them by name if you like, but
No,
I
it's
can.
okay. It's okay.
Yeah. So they are working there. We were planning to find out the results uh, of mindfulness on cognitive functions and immunity response. So we were planning to do a full evaluation and we took blood samples even to find out the immunity response. And we hit a very difficult challenge, which is COVID-19, which
Yeah.
pose. It's just a pose. So we're gonna get back to it soon. So the
Okay.
book was made in Arabic and English, and we trained teachers from Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Health in Bahrain. We had like the idea was to train teachers so that they can carry on and continue teaching in the schools. It was
Mm-hmm.
amazing. We got approved and got all the necessary papers done and everything. That was one of the I consider it one of the biggest achievements because it was amazing to just get all the approvals and
Oh, sure. Anytime you're dealing with bureaucracy and to actually get approvals for something that's becoming more and more mainstream, but still considered on the cutting edge is challenging. There's no doubt. How long have you been working on that project before
uh,
COVID-19? How long were you working on that?
2 years to create the
2 years.
content,
Okay.
follow up, and get approvals from all the necessary
Right.
governments, you know?
Yeah. So that's a big disappointment, but I'm sure it will be
Yeah.
rekindled.
And then I added James White, because I thought it would be really good to have his content also. I created the content and then I added more content from James White,
Okay.
because you remember what I told you about like craving to like work in a team environment and to have
Sure.
more, yeah. So then when I met him in Ireland, fast forward maybe 6 months, I was like, oh, why don't I why don't I add
Sure.
him, because
Yeah.
it's already happening. And I took all the approvals. Once I got all the approvals and everything, I was like, hey, look, I have, how about you put in more content so that we can make it even improve it better, and we can
Yeah.
I just, to be honest, I just wanted to give it a little bit of kind of global flavor.
Of
So
course. Yeah,
when
because
we're working
it's
together, it's
yeah.
more stronger,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, it's bigger than one place, so it's I think especially if he's been doing significant work in that area, tapping into that resource.
Mhm. He
Is
works a lot with cancer patients as well. So
okay. Wow. And it's interesting because you hear a lot about meditation and the brain, neuroscience. There's a lot of studies now about the science of meditation.
right.
Again, a very Western approach versus an Eastern approach. But
Yeah, the doctors are very interested. Thank God, like in Bahrain, I found many doctors who are interested to like research it more and to support the project, you know.
that's great. I haven't heard a lot about the science of meditation and immunity. So that's interesting that you have those two areas going, both measuring
Mm.
cognitive abilities, function, and immunity. Can you speak to that, meditation and immunity?
Um, because the founder of a genetic center in Bahrain is and a professor in the university, also a medical university in Bahrain, uh, took interest into joining this project. So, and he is very much into genetics and immunity and all of these things. So it was his suggestion, to be honest. It
Okay.
was straight off. It was more complicated because we need to get more approvals in order to, because we need to draw blood, you know, and it's not easy to get these approvals, especially for school children, you know.
Sure.
But he was so thrilled about the idea of having a research or an evaluation project for mindfulness, and he said, I'm going to do it and I'm going to support it all the way, but we need to test the immunity as well. So he
Well,
believes that it can he wants to learn more about it. And
he believes that that it can improve immune function.
exactly, especially from my perspective as a yoga therapist, like if we're teaching the children how to cope with the stress and how to deal with day-to-day anxiety, you know, that they're getting
Sure.
from exams, from bullies, and in the book we teach them a lot of things, um, how to handle bullies and how to deal with bullying, and so if we teach them these skills that they can use, the day-to-day skills, you know, it can definitely help. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the immunity is an important one now, given COVID-19. So meditation and immunity. I mean, we read about immunity and improving immunity. It's a daily. It's in the news. It's forefront, top of mind. So certainly meditation can be a tool in these stressful times. Do you have any feedback or comments regarding that in terms of meditation and COVID-19?
Yeah, definitely. We did several programs with the Ministry of Health to support the frontliners,
Okay.
frontline workers, I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we received a huge, very wonderful feedback, you know, a lot of excellent feedback from the frontline workers of how it was like direct. We like as we were doing the practices, we were feeling, they were feeling, oh, I feel much better. Oh, thank you. You
there,
know?
So you've been doing some work, or you were at the inception of COVID-19, doing some work with the essential workers, the frontline healthcare workers, and
I've been lucky to have the opportunity to work with them, and I'm
yeah,
really thankful for this opportunity.
yeah,
I've been working closely with the Ministry of Health in Bahrain, and
okay,
this is how, because they are involved with me also in the Mindfulness at Schools project. So when this was posed, the doctor suggested, she was like, okay, how about we do something for the frontliners while we're during the COVID-19, and I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then we created, I put together some practices for uh, burnout prevention,
hmm,
because we all saw how tiring it was in the beginning, especially, and still, and how they were working overtime to meet the needs, and all over the world was the same thing, so yeah. So the burnout prevention program it was actually like simple tools and techniques that they can use, mostly just breathing techniques and pranayamas, and some gentle movements and rotations that it can help them, and also the mindsets and being always mindful about the breath, so it can really help prevent burnout, basically,
hmm,
and reduce, at least give them a little bit more threshold, so
sure, sure. So you incorporated a number of different um,
yoga practice
yogic modalities, including pranayama, breathing,
and
meditation,
situations and
and
movements.
and
Yeah,
some of the postures, and all intended to bring them back into balance and to offer some relief from
but,
stress.
yeah,
And
and prevent burnout. Yeah,
sure.
so
Any particular breathing exercises that you brought to the essential workers that you consider to be important for stress management and reducing burnout and fatigue?
yeah, we did several groups, and the most important message that I always say, that the take out message that they should take home with them, is to always, always, always be mindful of your breath, whatever you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, whatever you are. Always be mindful of your breath. Always notice your breathing. Um, Try to have the consciousness of an awareness of your breath. Are you
Mm-hmm.
holding your breath? Are you just breathing fast? Are you most of the times when we're focusing on something, like for example now when you're listening to me, you may be focusing too much and holding your breath. You may be
That's true. I probably am.
yeah, yeah. So most people,
Sure.
we most of the times we won't be aware of that. So
Mm-hmm.
the most important thing is to become aware of the
Mm-hmm.
breathing and to slow it down as much as possible.
Sure, sure. Well, the breath is really the anchor, and it's really important. The connection between breath and mindfulness, and establishing that habitual pattern and way of being is important.
Yeah, and the functional breathing. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and the breath basically is the bridge between mind and body. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're always aware of your breathing, you will prevent the stresses of the mind to go to the
To,
physical level, and
to manifest in the body, to manifest the mind body connection, and you'll
exactly, yeah.
they
This
won't
is
manifest
the
in the body.
right, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I know since COVID-19, you've had some big life events. You recently, I believe you told me you were recently married. Congratulations.
I became a COVID bride.
Yeah, yeah. There's well, you didn't
Yeah.
have to, well, you didn't postpone the wedding. I'm happy to hear that, and congratulations. And you have had a whirlwind of activity, particularly in the last 5 years, with your refugee work, your mindfulness in the schools, um, and it's just been nonstop, a very hectic, a very high profile life, and wonderful experiences. And this has really been an opportunity with COVID-19 for you to pause
Yeah.
Do
As
you
I
want
say,
to?
I'm thinking of early retirement already.
Well, I think you're a little young for that. And you know, retirement is a misnomer. Nobody retires today anyway, you know. Um,
Retirement, anyways. Retirement is when you lose the government job and just do things that you love. So yeah,
that's perfect. I think that's the uh, what do they say? If you do what you love, you never have to work a day in your life. I believe that's the saying. So since um, things are quieter for you now, or perhaps not, tell me what you're thinking. You've had this opportunity to retreat,
mm,
to come into a place of not so much frenetic activity.
mm.
Um,
I
any
think
any any
COVID-19 has
what's been percolating for you?
COVID-19 has brought everyone in, and
Mm.
it just made everyone kind of isolate, and this is what it is about, just stay home and just isolate and for
It's like a very long winter.
yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, your winter, our winter would be going out because it's so
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
We wouldn't
exactly.
go out in the summer. That's the opposite, because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the heat is
Sure,
burning.
sure. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, a very
Yeah.
long summer
So
for you.
yeah, so it's like staying in and not doing anything. So um, everyone has been just retreating, and everyone who had the opportunity, and people has been working from home. I thought it was a good chance for me to just reflect and, just sit back and reflect and have the chance to just process what happened for the past
Mm.
5 or 6 years, especially the past 2 years when I set out to do the humanitarian work. It was just like, it was a little bit too fast, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of things happened, that a lot of intense things during this time, and it was very much needed for me to deal with my mother passing away,
Mhm.
and now that I'm finally in the beginning, it was difficult for me to just stay in because I'm used to just going out and doing things, and then but I'll be very honest, I this has helped me a lot.
That's your PlayStation?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a
Actually, that was my next question because you and I talked about, well, I just want to comment on what you're saying, that when we have had a very intense period of our lives, and also we've suffered a major loss, like you in the passing of your mother, and um, sometimes it is important that we process and we take the opportunity to integrate um, what's been happening during this intense period of activity. And we're in a better position to move forward in a direction that um, really serves our greatest good, and hopefully the greatest good of others as well. Um, but moving from that to video games, and which I don't pretend to know much about whatsoever. Um, I know you've been working on something, or you've had some thoughts and things that you'd like to do regarding video games, and you know, in terms of the positive and negative, the yin and the yang. So you want to speak,
yeah, exactly.
respond to that?
I've always been into video games, to be honest,
Sure, sure.
like since I was little, So
Yeah,
I don't see it as evil as people make it out, as grown-ups make it up, Now I never saw
sure.
that when I grew up. I didn't see the evil part of it, but I can understand when I see other gamers who make mistakes in choosing. For example, you have to choose the right game. You have to like when I say choose the right game, because there are games that are addictive. There
Yeah.
are games that are made to be addictive, and
Yes,
there are
yes.
yeah, and there
Okay,
are games.
that's so you think with video games that well, first of all, you mentioned, just to reinforce what you're saying, that um video games in terms of it was part of your generation. You know,
Right, yeah.
it was part of your, it was
And
part of your, part of your growing up experience. And so
right,
it
yeah.
was very natural for you to be involved with video games.
We're millennials, the Super Mario generation.
Sure, sure, absolutely, the millennials. And then actually you bring up a very good point that I can equate to food and diet as well. You say that it's, you know, and it's macrobiotic. Nothing is totally bad nor good. Everything, the bigger the front, the bigger the back, the yin and the yang. So it's just, but selection is important. So that's like food, that, you know, we have all these choices, and we have all these choices with video games.
And
So it's, you know, you
food
want,
for the brain, you know, it is food for the brain, because
and
it's
that,
just
and
a book or watching a movie.
that's you know, video games. I mean, you have to be, speak to that, food for the brain.
Yeah, it's just like reading a book, you know. You can read a book and be influenced to do something good, and you can read a book about crime and, like, you know, and psycho things, and you can be influenced as well. You don't know, it just depends on people and how they are and how they are raised, and what other things that influence them. Like, you cannot just say video games are bad, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It can be a movie that influence people to do something, to be more violent. It can be a book, it can be anything. So what I'm trying to say is, uh, I've recently also, during COVID-19, I took the time to do some online courses, and one of them was a Harvard medical school cognitive fitness course. It's a really interesting course and very
Yeah, that is.
yeah, and part of it was about the cognitive reserve that we have, and
Yes.
how our experiences can expand that, and how we can have more of that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And video games is basically part of it, you know. It's
Mm-hmm.
just watching, going for the movies, or watching a movie and reading a book and playing video games. It's just part of the cognitive reserve that we have, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm saying you have to choose your games wisely. For me, I love to play adventure games. I love to play something that with a storyline, with a strong storyline, single player with a strong storyline. But when you're just playing, you know, these games uh, nowadays, the online games that you just, it's very much competitive. It can also help with focus and attention and everything. So it depends. There's
Yeah.
no such thing as completely bad or completely good. You know, there's always good and bad, and you just have to find the good thing. I have noticed, since I've been a gamer, like I've been playing video games since I was little, I've noticed that I did stop playing video games for a period of time when I went to India, and I was like very much more into nature, and I didn't even watch TV at that time for many years. I didn't even need to switch on TV, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want any noise or any kind of, like, you know. But I got back to playing video games, and I still don't see it as a, it's just, as I said, it's just like watching a movie or reading a book. You just have to choose something that, like, some people will watch a movie in which they will benefit, they will feel, oh, I this was really nice, I didn't know this story, it's a real story or something. And somebody else will watch a movie because they want to laugh, and somebody else will watch more action because they feel the need to feel that adventure. And yeah, so video games are simply just the same, you know. And it's good
Sure,
for them,
sure. When you,
totally food for the mind.
yeah, when you speak about cognitive reserve, what do you mean by that?
It's the experiences we have in life,
Okay.
the travel, the how much we read, how much we watch new
So
things.
essentially our memory, is it the same as memory, or is it different?
It's slightly different. It's
Yeah.
just part of it. Yeah,
Part of it. Okay. Part of our
yeah.
memory.
Like how much?
Um,
Yeah, and we need that. We need more of that. They say, like, the more of cognitive reserve you have, the less prone you are to dementia, and, you know,
okay.
these
So I thought it was, I thought I knew what you meant, but then I wasn't sure. Cognitive reserve is the balance remaining in our bank, in other words, like the reserve
exactly. You're expanding
of
your
our what's remaining in terms of our prowess, our cognitive abilities.
exactly, and you
And
can expand it and expand it. The more experiences you have, the more you travel, the more you watch movies. I was
oh,
also,
okay, that's
yeah,
interesting. So the reserve is not, it's not as though, okay, you've got this limited reserve. and it keeps declining. You can
No,
actually expand your reserve
exactly.
with
The more
and
you
video
exercise,
games could.
the more you watch, the more you play video
I
games, the
see.
more you expand.
So
Yeah.
what you're saying is that with video game, that might be a tool, that
Yeah.
video games, instead of going to the dark side, which a lot of commentators do, that they can in fact possibly be a tool.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And they always say like board games are the best. And okay, I wouldn't disagree with that because it even says by
that's
research.
that's perhaps unrealistic in today's culture, though.
Right, right. Yeah.
I mean,
And
let's be honest,
yeah, I always say that. So when it comes to video games, there are negative things and positive things. So the positive thing when it comes to your children, that they are in the house, they're playing the games and they're not going out and doing, any other thing that may be dangerous or maybe, you know,
Sure,
any
sure.
suspicious. Yeah, So again, you want them to be active, you want them to be social, but and nowadays children are socializing through video games because they play online together.
Oh,
That's something
of
I haven't
course.
even done, and I don't think I'm interested.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, actually, that brings me to our next question. It relates to video games. Given the work that you've done in the last decade relating to mindfulness, yoga therapy, stress management, breathing, holistic living, um, health, self-healing, do you see a connection between video games and some of your other work?
Yeah, yeah. To be honest,
Okay.
if we understand the basics of it even mentions that in the course as well that I had the Harvard School course, that the relation between stress and anxiety and depression is that when we have so much time in our hand that we have all these thoughts in our mind, but when you're too busy doing something, whether it's a video game or a movie or a book or you're walking or traveling or something, you don't have the time to have an anxiety. You don't have the time to be depressed. You don't have, because you're already doing something.
You're totally on the spot present.
Mindful.
Yeah, it's another way to be totally with the experience, totally with the experience. So
Yes. And the
perhaps.
video games in specific, if you select a good video games with beautiful graphics, the whole scenery, amazing graphics, almost like real life graphics, the nature and the beautiful sceneries. And then you have the music, the background music, amazing background music that most of the video games, they turned into movies because the soundtrack is so good, and
Sure,
they
sure.
everything in the movie. So you have the soundtrack, you have the graphics, you have characters, and a whole story, a whole world to basically immerse yourself into and feel the experience. Yeah.
Where do you see your work in relation to AI?
Um. Well, I haven't seen it, to be honest, in relation
Okay,
to.
okay.
I haven't seen much.
I mean,
I
video games are a form of that to some
I did at
extent, not
one
totally,
stage.
but
Yeah, at one stage I thought about like a yoga video game, which is different than what the fitness video games that we have on the in the market or that
okay.
are. I did
I
think,
would love to see you develop that.
yeah, but I didn't think about it that much because it's too complicated for my
Yeah.
generation to do.
Perhaps so, yeah.
Yeah,
They won't be able to take time to do pranayama or breathing exercises during that.
yeah, and then it requires a lot of
Oh,
financial
of
resources.
course, of course. Anything like that would require fundraising, no doubt. Just curious, just curious.
I did thought about that, so it's quite an interesting question that you asked. I thought about that like maybe 4 years ago or so or something. I was like, oh, it'd be nice to develop a video game about mindfulness and about, or maybe an app, even an application would be wonderful to remind people to give them like and yeah. Speaking about that, I wasn't gonna say this, but I can say it now. I have some work with the Sharjah Family Supreme Council for Family Affairs. Okay, and
What is that? What is that name? I didn't catch that name. Sharjah, how do you spell that?
yeah, Sharjah is a place is a city in Abu Dhabi.
Oh, okay, okay, sorry.
I am Abu Dhabi. I mean, in UAE.
Right, right, okay.
An hour, a lot. 2 hours away from Abu
I
Dhabi.
see. So it's a place and not a family.
So they have a Spring Council of Family Affairs. We do
I
have work
see.
with them, and I have some work in Oman also.
Okay.
And we brought up an idea of having an application for the employees to help them with their well-being, like a well-being application.
Okay.
Reminders and things like,
Sure. Sure.
steps and reminders and um, movements and postures and
Yeah. So well-being app.
yeah, that's as much as
cool.
I thought when it comes
And
to
that's in
yeah.
its I assume that's in its infancy in terms of percolating.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, not as
All
much.
right.
I thought about a video game, I thought about an app, but it's just thoughts, nothing yet.
Nothing has
Fine.
stuck yet. Okay. All right. Well, Fatima, this has been an awesome conversation, touching many different areas that you've been involved in, and bringing out to our listeners and viewers what you've been doing in the world, the great work you've been doing. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add to our viewers and listeners of the Healthy Peaceful podcast?
I just want to thank you so much for sticking in and listening to us until the end of the podcast. And thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You take care.
You too.
Hang for a moment.